All right, hailing frequency open, and we are doing another live-ish show where we're watching Star Trek: The Original Series on Twitch with you, our loyal fans. What is this, you may be asking? Well, you've tuned into like the 5th episode, so that's kind of odd, but cool, whatever. We are doing a Twitch watch party, which means if you have Amazon Prime, if you've already linked the two together, you can watch with us live right now, perfectly legal, more or less, Star Trek: The Original Series. Today we are watching the episode "The Enemy Within." If you stumbled upon this some other way, take the next few minutes while we're talking about our memories and our feelings about Star Trek to try to currently link Amazon Prime and Twitch so that you can watch along with us. All right, folks, "Enemy Within," cool sounding title. I know nothing about this episode.
No, really?
Nothing.
See, I keep forgetting that you're a fan of Star Trek, but you're not that fan, right?
Yeah, I'm definitely not a like.
I think he just called you out.
Yeah, he called me a fake fan. No, I don't know the original series extremely well. I'm actually really bad at. Ken, more than anyone will know, I'm really bad at remembering things. I can't remember the person whose name I'm talking to. I'm terrible. Just plain terrible. A lot of times I'll watch it and be like, oh, that's what this is. I know what this is, but like it carries no weight with me going in. So like I have no clue what this episode is. It's possible we'll watch 15 minutes and then in the chat I'll be like, oh, yeah, I know this episode. But for the most part, it was for me Next Generation and after that I really followed, which isn't that bad. I mean, it's the second bowl out. I don't remember enough of the animated series. I did watch that, I think, number 1 first, but I don't remember enough about it.
That's all right. I'm like you, Frank. It was Next Generation I watched the most of, and then I've got other stuff after that I've done, bits and pieces of. I have no idea what we're going into, but I know Katie got excited when she heard the title. So
it's mostly all because I always message my mom, and I'm like, we're about to watch this episode, and then she's like, oh, that's the one with the blah, blah, blah. And she always ruins it for me. And then it comes back to me. So I'm like, oh, darn it, Mom. You're right. That is.
And it's not even spoiling because by now you should just know.
Exactly.
I want to point out something. Star Trek is, I guess, eternally getting some form of renaissance. And, well, I think I just saw it recently. I know it's been out for a couple of weeks, but Lower Decks came out. It's the animated series about the people on the lower decks, the staff of a starship. Did anybody on this chat get a chance to see it yet?
No, I heard they released the first episode free on YouTube, so I mean to, but I haven't yet.
That's how I saw it. And Ken, you saw it?
I did. I actually subscribed to CBS.
Good. You know what? I was all over the place with this one. I really love one of my favorite things about Star Trek was how much it's set in a utopia, right? Especially the original series and definitely Next Generation. There is something aspirational about the Federation and everything involved with it. Yeah, there are some complications here and there, but for the most part, the story is pretty much a positive outlook for the future, whereas a lot of the science fiction I grew up on is dystopia, very much dystopia. So that, of course, changes a little bit as Star Trek gets older and, you get Voyager, the Maquis, and all that, everything else. It kind of puts a little bit of a spin on it. The fact that this show was supposed to be yet another look at what the lower classes or lower decks of this utopian future was like, I was not interested, but at the same time, I don't want to be a jerk. I don't want to be one of those guys. And I gave it a shot, and it was really good.
Oh, good.
I liked it. I don't know where a lot of the negative criticism that I'm seeing about it is coming from. It's just fun, is what it is.
It's fun. It's kind of derivative of some other very popular cartoons now. I get it, but like it was fun. And there were the only reason I bring it up is because we were talking about our history with Star Trek and the animated series, and I believe the Doc on Lower Decks is one of the cat people, which had only ever appeared on the animated series beforehand. So I guess it's eternally ate cat.
I want to say it's a different race because they look different, but yeah.
They may have just stylized cats now. It's less Thundercat and more. Well, it wasn't even Thundercat to begin with. We're getting off topic. So yeah, Enemy Within. We're gonna watch it right now. Hopefully by now you've linked Twitch and Amazon Prime. If not, you'll always have a chance, and you can watch along with us. There's gonna be something wacky that happens on your window right now. You're supposed to press a button to get into the watch the party screen, and then you press the button to get back in. It's kind of insane, but hey, you know what? It's not our fault. Ask our Amazon overlords. All right, let's watch. That was a pretty interesting episode. I thought, and you may have noticed in the chat, I thought I did know this episode. I'm like, oh, this is the one with the evil twins, but it's not the one with the evil twins that I was thinking.
That's exactly what. At first, I was like, no, but we do get them.
We crossed it. There was no goatee, so I knew that it wasn't.
Yeah, Katie was like, "Where are the mustaches?"
Yeah, so interesting. Kind of a dark episode. I don't know if this holds up anymore.
I really liked it.
So, I mean, let's talk about what we liked about it, what we thought was interesting, and then maybe the controversial things towards the end. Yeah, what did you like about it, James?
Well, I don't want to steal this from Katie, but let's talk about that dog.
All right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. You've been mentioning dog or dressing up your cat for quite a while. Katie, what are you on?
It cracks me up because it's so far, even though like the sets are simple, there's nothing been like comically like, oh my God, that's just a dog with fur around its head and pipe cleaners coming out of it.
Yeah, that is the most like, oh, this is a 60s sci-fi show. We're not really going to try that hard.
I loved it, and I loved that it came back, and it was great.
I find it upsetting that a lot of my notes start with the word poor and then whatever the statement is. And this one was poor alien unicorn dog lizard.
Yeah, this is by far a worse effect than, or more adorable effect than the hand plant from an earlier episode, which I thought was just like a little off. Like it was good, but it was kind of obviously a hand in a glove. But this was very obviously a dog in a sweater.
With a mane.
Why do you think they thought that a dog would be an unfamiliar enough creature to audiences where they would look at it and be like, I have no idea what this is. It must be some sort of alien lizard creature.
Well, and it barked too.
It full growled and barked. That was its. Yeah, that was very an interesting choice. Maybe they were running out of budget by then. I don't know.
So I'm going to say, to talk about something that I liked the idea of the transporter, right? So the transporter, I feel like, is always something that we touch upon as like Star Trek fans, you know, like, how does that thing really work? Are we copying people? Are we, so to give a transporter related mystery / problem so early on, I think was awesome. A lot of fun.
Yeah, you're right. Season 1, I did not expect season 1. They're already like breaking apart their own fiction, right? Their own world building.
The transporter is a mistake.
I was going to say it too. That I now understand why McCoy was always scared to death of him and never wanted to use them.
So, actually, one of the few Star Trek series I've seen all the way through, in Enterprise, they harken back to this episode, Star Trek Enterprise. I think it's Lieutenant Hoshi, which is their communications officer's like, there's an emergency, and they use the transporter on her for the first time. But then she has nightmares that are essentially like this episode, right? That she's falling apart and there are doppelgangers of her. And but I didn't know, I just thought it was a cool episode at the time. But obviously it's meant to harken back to this.
That's really neat. Yeah, that's really cool. The things that we don't even realize are references to the original series, season 1. That's crazy. Yep. first handful of episodes. It's really awesome. It's also, I think, highly remarkable for it being the first most obvious example of Shatner just eating the scenery.
Oh yeah,
devouring it. It was beautiful.
It was like you're witnessing history.
Yeah, like he's coming up with a whole new kind of acting. Like there's method, and then there's Shatner, and
and he gets to do it twice.
Yeah,
and one of them is in Guyliner.
Yeah, indeed, with lots of Vaseline on his face. And let's not we I know I mentioned that he was eating scenery, but like when he's playing the Hyde or the Jekyll, I guess to the evil doppelganger, him being reserved, him being indecisive was very grounded. It was an extremely grounded performance. He wasn't like I don't know, Golem. No offense to Andy Serkis, but like he wasn't like crippled with indecision where he was like a cartoon. He was a person who couldn't be a captain of a starship like any one of us possibly.
Yeah, he just seemed so frustrated with his own inability, but not like crippled by it. Yeah, sorry, Katie.
Yeah, no, I thought that side of it was cool because it was almost like Uncanny Valley because it was the Kirk we know and love, but just something was different. Yeah. And I almost wish the other side of him had been a little more subtle.
Yeah, we maybe could use a little bit more subtlety. But on the other hand,
Captain.
Oh my God, there's so many things. I'm surprised that hasn't been gift to death, but I have not seen many gifts from this. I think I might have an insight maybe on why Shatner didn't, or like basically did a cartoonish performance for his evil half. This episode is hard to watch now. There was a assault in the very start of this. Like that yeoman is attacked by him in her quarters. It's a very uncomfortable scene in general. It's more uncomfortable now. The amount of grilling she gets afterwards about like what really happened, and you must have imagined this, and look at the evidence that it wasn't what you said happened. There's and a lot of that was unintentional, right? None of it was about, effectively about rape culture. None of it was, but it was really uncomfortable to watch through today's lens.
Well, that, and I guess because of today's lens, like listening to her try to explain what happened, like you feel real empathy for her. Like you can only imagine first of what she went through, but then having to tell the other Kirk what happened, she had to feel embarrassed and worried,
But also like, not that this is a better reading on it, but I mean, the reading on it could be that Kirk did do it, right? The whole ending is about, how that we need the evil side of ourselves, which means that real Kirk should be just as responsible, so then it is just a real interpretation of them gaslighting her, which I mean is super crappy.
It's right on the edge of being like, again, I don't think it's rare you could ever say what the intent of the original, the artists are. But in this case, like, I think part of what they wanted to express was that you need your evil side. It's how he becomes more decisive and how he's able to make these hard decisions.
It's his aggressive side.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think that and to be clear, Spock, who's the one who's like, I think, evil, he's the way he delivers the line, it's clear he's not convinced it's evil. In fact, I think maybe the whole thing reads better if you call it like id, right? Id, super ego. If this is his impulsive, like base animal side, he wants this thing and he's going after it. But what James said is right. That means that some part of Kirk is kind of capable of it. I mean, it's hard to say because the
whole point. The title is The Enemy Within. That is a part of him that he has to deal with. But also as like a captain, like they make it very clear he's not supposed to have relations with people. And obviously it's because his aura has power. Just as a man of power, he, is it's not even something he can help.
I think there's that, and but also this isn't a matter of him going in there being so charming that, he was in a relationship he shouldn't have been in. He was just forcing himself.
And I just think the part where she would be embarrassed to talk about him like he's the captain. I can't, you know what I mean?
Yeah, this whole thing brings up a lot more than I think they may have initially intended in this, but the outline was definitely there. It was definitely the, we are multifaceted beings with, good aspects and bad aspects to us, and it's the juggle between all of those. It's sort of like the transition point where people are saying there's good and evil in everyone to there's ego, super ego within everyone, and we're a battle of all those things.
But I think it's an awesome thing for, I guess I've always thought of original Star Trek is pulpy. I just didn't expect, like, even in these first couple of episodes, like, we've had really interesting things to talk about, and they've tried to tackle really interesting subject matter that, like, I just either didn't notice when I used to watch it because I was a child, or I just didn't give it credit for. And that's been really interesting.
Right.
Can we talk a little bit about Spock versus McCoy on the should Kirk put himself whole again or not?
Yeah. All right. Sure. Go for it.
Well, so I feel like Spock is like for it, right? But he's the logical one. And he's like, the dog probably just died because of the stress of doing it. And then McCoy's like, yeah, but, I'm a doctor and we don't know that. And I just I want to go back to Spock's continued, we should kill the problem issue from his past few episodes. And I just think his actions are maybe a little suspect.
There was at least an 80% chance he was going to die.
Ken?
Well, I was going back to Bones. There's two moments. I think we actually got our first "He's Dead" Jim in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we did, yes.
But the other one is Kirk and McCoy are supposed to be pretty close. I think they kind of established that that Kirk, Spock, and McCoy have known each other for a while. Even in the first episode, we were told that Kirk is Spock's closest friend on the ship or whatever. So I'm assuming that they've all known each other for a while. When evil Kirk first shows up to McCoy and he starts barking at him, demanding a brandy, why wasn't that a telltale sign that there was a problem? Like, why didn't he just, why didn't he just detain him or something at that point? Because it obviously did not seem like him.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe he's seen Kirk in his low of his lows and seen that side of him.
Maybe Kirk's an alcoholic and we don't know it.
That could be part of it. I mean, because we don't know. I mean, obviously this is part of Kirk, so we don't know when it pops up. I also think that there's some less genre savviness, or your characters are less savvy of the genre they're in at this point. Like, this isn't Rick and Morty, where somebody walks in demanding brandy, and then Rick shoots him and goes like, "No, I know what this is. Transporter failure." But yeah, it is interesting. So, to James's point, I have a list of things that I don't think worked well for me in this, and one of them was the very simplistic breakdown of intelligence wins over internal conflict, right? Because that's what Spock's argument really is. It's that this dumb animal was in shock when whatever happened to it. You're a rational being. You can come to terms with this. Hey, I just convinced myself I'm wrong in the middle of my argument. Let me continue. You're a rational human being. You can see through the shock of what's about to happen to you. Your intelligence will lead you the way. The same way my intelligence as a half Vulcan, half human allows me to put the two warring halves of my mind at rest, or put them in their place. And I think that's a little ridiculous, or at least I did when I wrote down that note. I thought that was a little simplistic of saying, like, you can think your way out of internal conflict. Because think about this extrapolated onto your life. If you have experienced internal conflict because of identity issues, of who you are, can you just be like, well, I'm going to be rational about this and not have those conflicts? imagine how insulting that would be. We all know we're friends with various people who are mental health professionals and social workers and what have you, and they would not say like, "Hey, just be rational."
Would you
knock
have
it
felt
out
better if there were like scenes of him going to therapy afterwards? If he sold like a Troy and kept going?
If Spock actually did, his racial identity crisis, he's actually experiencing it by talking to a counselor. Sure, it would be great. But I think, like I said, I talked myself out of it. Is in terms of the duality of ourselves, not like I think Spock simplifies it by saying it's about his biracial makeup. I think if it's about the internal conflict we all have between our id and our ego and super ego and what have you, I think being rational and thinking things through, attempting to think things through, is therapy in a way. It's trying to contextualize your internal conflict to make sense of it. So this is a very stupid analogy or very silly analogy using a transporter to explain mental anguish, but it kind of works. I think it makes sense. I could see the two halves of Kirk's personality at war with each other, and he has to just sit down and come to terms with it so he doesn't die of shock like a dog.
That's it.
That's all it is.
This tracks.
But are other things that did not track for me or I did not like. Why was there brandy in the
medical office? It's the future, but we still use alcohol as like a numbing agent.
Got it.
Never going to get rid of that.
Well, even go back to the pilot, we established that the doctors carry along alcohol with them for the captain.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Let's see. What else do I have? The conceit about how he would lose command if the crew knew that there was a doppelganger of him was stupid.
No way.
That was dumb.
I think that's totally fair. If you don't know which Kirk's which, you're going to be like, no Kirk should be in charge right now.
Scars. And it wasn't a matter of no Kirk would be in charge. First of all, they definitely know which one's which. They have an obvious scar. One of them can't act worth a crap. He's constantly going, freaking out. Also, there's an entire...
He got better at acting by the end.
He did. There's an entire crew of people who say, no, he's the real Kirk. Don't worry about it.
But neither of them were the real Kirk.
No,
right?
Well, yeah, good point. But he's the
neither of them were
Kirk.
Technically fully qualified.
That's a good argument, but it's not the argument Spock and McCoy were making to him as he was debating whether or not to tell everyone. He said, I should really tell my crew that there's an evil me going around, to warn them. And they're like, what? Yeah. If you warn them that there's an evil you going around, no one's going to take you seriously. And that is a very cowboy aspect. Vision of command. I don't like it.
I would say that the other interpretation of that is that they're going to think you're crazy. But my problem is every single one of these episodes has been something crazy happening. So it really doesn't fly. But to be fair, I feel like a lot of television shows use that logic. And I
hate it every time. Every CW show is about
exactly
not talking to each other.
It's like, well, we can't talk about that. No one would believe you. I'm like, yeah, sure. You just resurrected X person from the dead, but nobody's going to believe you're having a tough time with your left toe.
Yeah, it was very bothersome. And then finally, that fight, I think it was a little bit on the edge of scandalous. Not the fight, the attack.
It's like, what fight?
I think Kurt. I really think Kurt
fighting him.
Was a little bit on the edge of salacious for viewers at the time. I don't think it was just purely meant to be disturbing. I think it was also meant to be a little titillating, and that did not hold up well for me. And finally, her hair. Is it a weave?
Thank you.
That was I wrote that down.
I don't know how that thing works. It looks like it wraps around her head, but there's nothing tying anything off. And yeah.
My handwriting is terrible. It's Yeoman who?
Janice.
Rand.
Janice.
Yeah.
Oh.
Janice Rand.
Yeah. So when she was at the mirror and she was playing with the bobby pins, and I'm like, all right, she's gonna full ass take off a weave, and I'm gonna be like, nice commitment. But no, she was just looking at her hair. I think that's.
I never once thought about that.
Well, because I think only because of the extreme close-ups of it in this episode.
Yeah, it's also unbold, so I'm very focused on where people are wearing hairpieces. I'm like, what's up with that?
Can I ask a question too?
Yeah.
Whenever Kirk is doing the recording of the log, it's always seemed like it's happening in real time, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the beginning, after the credits, he does the log entry and explains that there's a duplicate on the ship before anybody's met it.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of bothered me too.
It's like a little bit past tense. Like it's little did we know at the time that there was a duplicate. But then occasionally Spock will take over duties because he's a crazy man baby.
I assume he has to do it every night.
I don't think so. The log is being used as a tool here, right?
Yeah.
It's a narrative tool to either help us, to give us kind of the heads up of the episode or fill us in from.
Yeah, we absolutely, everyone knows that, James.
Oh,
we want to know how it fits into the context of the show. We're not meta gaming.
It doesn't matter. They didn't think that far.
All right, no more for Jays. Did you realize that they weren't actually in space? That they come back, James? I'm joking. Hey, look, you've changed positions. No, yeah, we know. But
now I'm evil, James.
What if you had shaved your mustache and just had like a little devil's patch? Is that what it's called? Devil's patch? I don't know the name for it. Just the thing. Soul patch.
Soul patch. Yeah.
Soul patch.
Yeah. Devil's patch.
Devil.
Right, overall, like it was an interesting episode, and it sparked a lot more debate than I thought it would, which was pretty much powered entirely on that. Can we have a bad guy that's just one of our actors again?
Save budget.
Yeah, but no, it also raised some interesting questions that I think they probably meant initially, but those questions got a lot darker over time. Yeah.
I'm not 100% too, but I think there was a callback to this episode in Star Trek Generations. Because
really?
At the end of the film, spoiler alert, Kirk's last words are, "Oh my." And it's the exact same way he says it when he finds out that there's a duplicate him on the ship in this episode.
Huh. So maybe we're going to get like Generations 2, old evil Kirk.
Maybe.
I survived.
Oh my
Give me
God.
some scenery. Don't follow me on Twitter. Don't. Anyways, yes. So yeah, any final thoughts on this episode before we sign off for the evening?
Going back to the opening, did anybody catch who wrote the episode?
Oh no.
Richard Matheson.
Really? Nice.
I Am Legend and Stir of Echoes, Richard Matheson.
Wow. All right. Now I do believe all of this was intentional. No, I mean, clearly it was to some extent. Yeah, that's great. So many cool, like, legends of sci-fi had their fingers in this first season of Star Trek. It's really impressive. I'm glad I had a chance to watch it with the three of you and all of you at home. If you have a chance, please follow our channel for the next time we go live. And hey, give us a subscription. You get a free one with Twitch Prime. And we do appreciate it. It helps keep the lights on. Next week's episode is one that's super famous. Even I recognize the title, Mud's Women.
All right, Frank.
Yeah, I know. Well, I know Mud, but I don't really know which episode this is. But I think they're all just chef's kiss. And yeah, I guess until then, keep watching the skies. That's not appropriate for this. There's a space theme, but it's not quite there. Anyways, cut the logo. We're